You've charted a very unconventional career path, making very bold decisions, taking what you said are leaps of faith, often with different career moves. How would you describe your trajectory?
You know, I have to say that it's easy looking back on it to think that there was a plan here, but in fact, you know, I just leapt in. I knew I wanted to work. And I'm now 62, which means that I came of age at a very different time. It took me a while to figure out what it was that I loved, but once I found it, I stayed with it for close to 15 years. And that was magazine editing.
You said that in some cases you've taken on roles where you were a beginner again.
Yes.
What was the most challenging transition for you?
I've done it several times. The first time was moving from magazines into television, and it was a completely different language. It definitely took me time to get comfortable in that world, but the most challenging, I think, was moving from the Martha Stewart Company to Gilt. Now, Gilt was a startup at the time. There were about 50 people working at the company, and it was a fully digital company.
Did that intimidate you at all at this point in your career?
You know, I didn't think so until I walked into the room and realized that, first of all, everyone could be my child. There was a huge age difference. And I was going back to working at a workstation, which I hadn't done in many, many years. And I will tell you, for the first couple of weeks, I thought, you know, how do I ever make a phone call again? And I think most challenging was really thinking about how I talk to engineers, how I get across what I need done, and how I understand what the architecture of a site is.
Do you think leaders raise their hand enough and say, I don't know the answer?
No. I think it's, you know, it's human instinct, I think, not to want to show any vulnerability. And so as a result, I think we play along. I mean, we do it in school, right? How many times do people let something pass when they could raise their hand and say, I don't get this. Please tell me over again. I think in business, it just happens constantly. We take for granted either that we will get it over time, or that it's not seemly for someone who is in a senior position to say, I don't know, help.
If you were to think about a setback or a failure in terms of a success, what would you think of as your most successful one?
Clearly, the biggest public failure that I had was being fired from ABC, and it was the only job that I've had that I didn't feel like I finished. I had always been the good girl and sort of the star of my show, and I always felt that I was doing well. So the idea that I was being told that they were going a different way and they were going to put a different person into this role really came out of the blue. But I would say within a couple of days, and I will also say the sadness lasts for a much longer period of time, but I am resilient, and within a couple of days I was thinking about what's the upside here? How do I look at this in a different way? What am I getting an opportunity to do from this experience that I might not otherwise?
You've talked about the influence of family in your personal life and in your career, and also have spoken how your husband's battle with cancer, very, very tragic battle, was hugely influential for you as a leader. How did that experience help shape you, and where do we see that now today?
Yeah, you know, I think that there is nothing that can possibly happen in your life than losing someone you adore to make you really think hard about what's important. And so it did focus me very heavily on on my family, my friends, and all the things outside of those driving business decisions that had given me succor for many, many years. The other thing that I learned during that period of time, and really was driven by my husband, was be present. And you can learn that. You know, I was the ultimate multitasker who, you know, while I was doing something, I was thinking about the 7 other things that were undone that I still needed to complete. And it was really during that 7 months, my husband was very sick, that I learned how to put that out of my head when I was with him and with my kids during that period of time. And I've carried that back into work with me.
If you were to give a piece of advice to yourself of 25 years ago, what would you have told yourself at that point in your life?
Don't stay up nights worrying about what you did wrong today. You know, I think that particularly early in your career, every mistake you make, and we all make them, feels like it's the end of the world. And I spent plenty of nights literally up all night thinking about what I could have done differently. And what you learn over time is that there are very few mistakes that are career enders. That what you have to learn is how to make good on them, right? Whether it is to change direction or it's to say, I'm sorry. And so as a 62-year-old looking back at my younger self, I'd say, don't worry, it'll be fine.